The restaurant lights were low and golden, the kind that make every wine glass glow like it's holding liquid fire. Across the table, my mother stared at me, her voice slicing clean through the clink of silverware and the hush of ocean waves behind the patio. You should have brought food from home for Leora. My little girls. Fingers tightened around mine under the table. 8 years old, eyes already too wise. Meanwhile, my sister Serena was laughing, loud and careless, while Carter ordered another bottle of wine and the $120 surf and turf like it was appetizers. Something inside me snapped. Not loud, not messy, just a clean, quiet break I felt in every bone. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loud enough that half the Laguna Ocean Grill turned to look. "Excuse me?" I said. Clear, loud enough for the whole damn table. "I'll be paying for my meal only. Please put everything else on my mother's card." The silence that followed was so thick you could have spread it on bread. My mother's face went ghost white, the color draining right out of her the way power used to drain out of me every time she spoke. "Kai, what are you doing?" she hissed. I looked her dead in the eyes for the first time in years. Exactly what I should have done a long time ago. "My name is Kai Rivenhart. I'm 32, a single father, and that night in Laguna Beach was the night I finally stopped being the family ATM and started being the man my daughter deserves. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the moment the evening began, when hope still flickered like those stupid lanterns strung above the tables. Leora and I arrived early. She was wearing the soft blue dress she saves for special days, the one with tiny embroidered stars. She squeezed my hand as we stepped onto the patio, the salt air wrapping around us like a promise. "Daddy, can I order something special tonight?" Her voice was small, careful, already braced for disappointment. That alone twisted something sharp low in my chest, because she shouldn't have to ask like that. Not ever. Then the rest of the family arrived late, of course, sweeping in like they owned the tide itself. Marianne in pearls, Damien trailing behind her like a shadow, Serena in designer sunglasses even though the sun had already set, Carter's hand possessively on her lower back. Serena launched into a story about Scottsdale, waving her new bag the way other people wave flags. All I could think about was the $900 I'd been sending her every month for rent. Marianne pulled out Serena's chair, asked a dozen questions about the trip, then finally glanced at me with the same distracted half-smile she'd been giving me since I was 12. Damien met my eyes for half a second before looking away, rehearsed, practiced, automatic. The server handed out menus. When he reached me, Marianne slid mine away with that gentle, patronizing pat that felt like a slap. "You should have brought food from home for Leora," she repeated, louder this time, as if volume somehow made cruelty polite. "Everything here is so expensive." Leora's hand slipped off the menu like it burned her. She looked up at me, eyes dimming. "So, I can't pick anything." Across the table, Serena and Carter were debating lobster versus Wagyu. Not one person noticed my own blood, noticed my daughter had nothing ordered at all. I drifted for a second. Flashes hit me like lightning. The promotion Marianne dismissed with "good, now you can help Serena more." The car accident Serena caused that I paid to fix. Leora's last birthday, when Marianne forgot a gift for her own granddaughter but brought extravagant gifts for Serena's stepkids, piece by piece. I'd been carved into nothing but a wallet with legs. When the server came back, every pair of eyes shifted to me, waiting for me to fold the way I always did. But the break inside me had already happened, quiet and irreversible. I stood. "I'll be paying for my meal only," I repeated, louder, steadier. "My daughter will have the macadamia-crusted sea bass, and I'll take the grilled salmon salad. Separate check, please." You could have heard the waves crash twice, and the silence was that complete. Marianne's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Serena froze mid-bite, sauce glistening on her lip like accusation. Carter muttered something about not making a scene, which was rich coming from a man eating a steak that cost more than my weekly groceries. Damien looked at me. Really looked and gave the smallest nod. Barely there, but I felt it in my spine like sunlight. Leora's tiny smile broke across her face, cautious, then real. For the first time all night, she sat up straight. Like someone had finally told her she belonged at the table. Dinner dragged on in suffocating tension. When the server slid the full bill toward Marianne, her hand shook as she signed. "You've embarrassed this family," she whispered. "Venom wrapped in pearls. You are ungrateful after everything we've done for you." I took one slow breath. The kind you take right before you jump off a cliff you know you'll survive. "Since we're being honest," I said. Voice low but steady. "I'm also done paying Serena's rent. $900 a month for over a year. That ends tonight." Serena slammed her palm on the table. "You can't just stop." "We had an agreement." "There was never an agreement," I answered. "I helped because I thought family helped. Turns out it only goes one way." Damien spoke for the first time all evening, quiet but heavy. "He has every right, Marianne. It's his money." I don't know who looked more shocked, Marianne, Serena, or me. I took Leora's hand, and we walked out into the cool Laguna night. The air tasted like salt and freedom. She fell asleep in the back seat on the way home, her small voice still echoing in my head. Did I do something wrong? That question shattered me more than anything that happened at the restaurant. Back at our apartment overlooking the marina, I tucked her in, kissed her forehead, then stood on the balcony alone. The ocean lights shimmered below like scattered coins. I felt lighter, but hollow too. Like I'd stepped off solid ground into thin air and hadn't landed yet. Luca came home from his late shift. Found me staring at a crumpled receipt and a half-empty coffee mug. I told him everything. He didn't flinch, didn't look surprised. "You finally called it what it is," he said softly. Emotional blackmail, dressed up as family duty. We talked until the sky turned the color of wet sand. He made me retrace the pattern, not just the moments that hurt, but the whole architecture. How every milestone of mine had been converted into currency for Serena. How love always came with a price tag. Then my phone rang. Aunt Mila, her voice was soft steel. "You finally stood up," she said. "Took you long enough." And then she dropped the bomb I wasn't ready for. "Years ago, when you were still in college, your mother used your name to co-sign a loan. Told everyone it was for the family. Funny how the dates line up perfectly with that boutique Serena opened and closed in 6 months. My skin went ice cold. After we hung up, I pulled my credit report on my laptop right there in the dark, and there it was. A loan from 12 years ago. My signature, or a very good forgery. Balance recently paid off. Never once mentioned to me. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred, pulse hammering in my ears. All those years I thought I was helping voluntarily. I'd been chained to their mess long before I even knew what they were doing. The balcony door was still open. The ocean kept breathing below, indifferent, and I realized the real fight hadn't even started yet. The morning after Aunt Mila's call, I dropped Leora at school and drove straight to the bank. The loan officer confirmed everything in a voice. So neutral, it felt cruel. Forged signature. Family mailing address used for statements. Balance quietly paid off 2 years ago when I started earning more. I sat in the parking lot afterward, hand shaking on the steering wheel. The Pacific sun glaring off the windshield like it was trying to burn the truth deeper into me. When I got home, Luca was already at the kitchen table with coffee and an open notebook. "We're building a file," he said simply. "Everything. Receipts, transfers, screenshots. If they come for you, we won't be empty-handed." His calm steadied me more than any hug could have. 2 days later, the storm arrived wearing Mary Ann's perfume. I was walking Leora home from school when I saw the black SUV blocking our building's entrance. Serena leaned against the passenger door, clutching a thick folder like a weapon. Mary Ann stood beside her, arms crossed so tight her pearls looked ready to snap. I barely got the apartment door open before they pushed past me. The folder landed on the counter with a gunshot in the quiet. "You owe this family an explanation," Mary Ann announced, voice trembling the way it always did when she was about to play victim. Serena flipped the folder. Open. Lease agreements highlighted in furious yellow. My old text messages printed and annotated in red pen. "You agreed to help," Serena said. "Mom has it all right here." I laughed, soft, disbelieving. "I helped." "That's not a contract." Mary Ann slid a pen toward me. "You'll put it in writing today. $900 a month until Serena's back on her feet." Luca appeared in the hallway, silent until that moment. He stepped beside me, hands settling warm and steady against the small of my back. "This is Kai's home," he said, voice low but unbreakable. "You don't get to barge in and demand he sign his life away." Mary Ann spun on him. "This is family business. Stay out of it." Luca didn't blink. "I'm in it when the people I love are being bled dry." The air crackled. Serena's eyes filled with tears that never quite fell. I knew that look, rage wearing mascara. I reached into my wallet, pulled out for crisp hundreds, and set them on the counter. "This is the last of it. After today, I'm done." Mary Ann's face twisted. "You've let him change you. You're abandoning your sister." They stormed out, the door slamming so hard Leora flinched into my side as the echo died. My phone buzzed. "Damien, I heard what happened," he said, voice tired but clear. "I should have stopped her years ago. I won't side with her anymore." I didn't know whether to thank him or scream. That night, Luca and I locked every financial document in a fire safe, box I'd never needed before. I changed passwords, removed Mary Ann as authorized user on old accounts, set up two-factor on everything. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't bracing for the next demand. I was preparing for war. A week later, the second punch landed. The school called at 10:03 a.m. Mr. Rivenhart. We received an anonymous report alleging neglect and emotional instability regarding Leora. Social services will visit today. The world tilted. I knew Bone Deep, who had weaponized the system against us. Luca raced home. We didn't clean because we had anything to hide. We documented every cabinet opened and photographed with timestamps, every drawer, every snack in the pantry, Leora's artwork on the fridge, her neatly folded clothes, the swim team ribbon pinned above her bed. The social workers arrived at 2 to calm women with badges and clipboards. They walked through our home like it was any other Tuesday. They spoke to Leora alone in her room. She told them about weekend pancakes, about Luca teaching her to body surf, about how Daddy reads 2 chapters every night no matter how tired he is. When they finished, one of them closed her notebook gently. "This environment is safe, stable, and clearly loving." The report doesn't match what we're seeing. Before leaving, she crouched to Leora's level. "Has anything been upsetting you lately, sweetheart?" Leora, honest to a fault, answered only when Grandma says I should eat at home so Daddy doesn't waste money on me. The worker's eyes flicked to mine. Not accusing, just knowing. They left with the case closed. But the warning that false reports would stay on record. That night, Luca sat across from me. deadly serious. This isn't about rent anymore. They're trying to take her from you. He opened my laptop, created a new folder, Leora Protection. Every email, every photo, every receipt went in. The next morning, an email from Serena heard there was trouble at Leora's school. What happened? Too casual, too fast. I saved it without replying. 3 days later, I found the thick envelope in the mailbox. Orange County Superior Court. Petition for grandparent and aunt visitation rights, claiming I was alienating Leora from family and causing her emotional harm. My hands shook so hard, I almost dropped it. I photographed every page and sent them to Clara Guan. The family law attorney Aunt Milla had once mentioned in passing. She called me back in 8 minutes. Meet me tomorrow. Bring everything. This is retaliation, pure and simple. Clara's office in Encinitas smelled like toasted almonds and quiet competence. I walked in with a folder so stuffed it wouldn't close. Luca beside me, Leora's hand in his. Clara flipped through pages like a card shark, eyes sharp. They're counting on fear, she said. But fear doesn't win in court when you have receipts. She laid it out plain. Switch all communication to email only. Update emergency contacts at school immediately. Marianne was still listed third. Log every interaction. Prepare a timeline. When my phone buzzed mid-meeting. Damien again. Your mother is gathering paperwork. I don't know for what. Be careful, Clara mouthed. Record everything before we left. She looked me straight in the eyes. If they escalate one more time, we don't wait. We hit back hard. On the drive home, Luca reached over and laced his fingers through mine. They're scared, he said. Scared people get reckless. That's when they make mistakes. That night, Serena emailed again. Tone syrupy. Can I take Leora this weekend? Just us girls. Too sudden. Too gentle. I saved it into the protection folder and felt dread settle heavy in my gut 2 days later. I opened the mailbox and found the certified letter from Clara. Cease and desist delivered to Marianne that morning. She had to sign for it, for the first time in my life. My mother had been forced to acknowledge a boundary in ink, but I knew her. I knew the war wasn't over. I stood on the balcony that night, city lights glittering below like scattered promises. I was finally keeping to myself and to my daughter. The ocean breathed slow and steady, the way I was learning to breathe again, and somewhere in the dark, I felt it. The next wave already building, taller and colder than the ones before. The morning of the hearing, the sky over Orange County was the color of wet steel. I woke at 5. Heart already racing, and found Luca in the kitchen, making coffee with the same quiet steadiness he'd shown since the night everything cracked open. He didn't say good luck. He just handed me the mug and kissed the corner of my mouth, slow, grounding, like he was reminding my body it still belonged to me. I braided Leora's hair while she was half asleep, whispering that she was spending the day with Luca's best friend and their new puppy. She giggled when I told her the puppy's name was Mochi, then hugged me tight around the neck. Will you be okay, Daddy? The question nearly undid me. I'm already okay, little star. Because of you. The courthouse hallway smelled like bleach and old wood. Marianne stood at the far end in a charcoal suit, pearls gleaming like armor. Serena hovered beside her, eyes red-rimmed, clutching a tissue she hadn't used yet. Damien leaned against the opposite wall, hands in pockets, looking 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him. When our eyes met, he gave me the smallest nod. Not apology yet, but acknowledgement. It was enough to keep my spine straight. Clara arrived in a navy blazer sharp enough to cut glass. She squeezed my arm once. Stillness is strength today. Let the facts speak. Inside the courtroom, the air was colder. The judge, a woman with silver-streaked hair and zero patience for theatrics, call the case, Marianne took the stand first. Her voice cracked on cue as she spoke about sudden estrangement, about how I'd allowed an outsider to poison me against my own blood, about how Leora needed her grandmother for emotional balance. Not one mention of money. Not one mention of the $900 a month, the forged loan, the false CPS report. Just tears and tradition and maternal heartbreak. Serena followed, voice trembling, talked about auntie days and family bonds. Clara let them finish. Then she stood, calm as deep water. She entered the social worker's report first. Case closed. No evidence of neglect, environment loving and stable. Then the timeline. Every bank transfer I'd made to Serena. Every demand, every threat after I stopped paying. Then the cease and desist letter Marianne had to sign for. Then the anonymous school report that magically appeared days after I cut the rent. Money that judge's pen never stopped moving. Clara called Damien next. He walked to the stand slowly, like a man carrying something heavier than himself. He looked straight at the judge. For years, my son supported this family financially, while we gave him nothing but expectations in return. This petition isn't about the child's welfare. It's about losing control of his wallet. I won't be part of it. Marianne made a small, wounded sound. Serena's mouth actually fell open. Clara saved the photographs for last. Serena on vacation in Cabo. Serena shopping in Scottsdale. Serena posting champagne brunches the same months she claimed she couldn't make rent. Serena broke. I needed help. She blurted, tears real this time. Mom said he was supposed to take care of me. The courtroom went perfectly still. That one sentence shredded every lie they'd dressed up as love. The judge didn't take long. Petition denied with prejudice. The court finds this filing frivolous and retaliatory. Costs to petitioners. Any future filings will require pre-approval to prevent further abuse of process. I exhaled so hard, my vision blurred. Outside in the hallway, Marianne stared at me. Rage and something broken flickering behind her eyes. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away. Serena followed, heels clicking like gunfire that had finally run out of bullets. Damien waited until they were gone. He rested a hand on my shoulder. The first voluntary touch I could remember from him in decades. You did the right thing. Son. His voice cracked on the last word. I nodded, throat too full for speech. The months after were quiet in a way. I'd never known quiet could be no 2 a.m. guilt texts. No surprise visits. No new emergencies that somehow only I could fix. Damien called sometimes. Voice softer, talking about the weather or Leora's swim meets. He told me Marianne rarely left the house anymore. Reputation had always been her oxygen, and the courtroom had taken it away. Serena and Carter divorced quietly. She moved into a one-bedroom in Irvine, and for the first time in her life, paid her own rent. I didn't feel triumph. I felt the relief was too deep for gloating. One October weekend, we drove up to Lake Arrowhead. Crisp air. Pine needles underfoot. Water so clear it mirrored the sky. We rented a small cabin with a stone fireplace. That night, after Leora fell asleep between us on the couch, Luca and I carried a small wooden box to the dock. Inside were the last relics, old family photos, birthday cards with $20 bills until you can help Serena more. The original loan papers I'd finally gotten released. I held each one for a moment. Let myself feel the weight, then let them go. One by one, they slipped under the dark water. No drama, no ceremony, just gone. Luca's arms came around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. How does it feel? He asked quietly, like I can finally inhale all the way. I whispered. We stayed until the stars came, out shone the moon. Back home, life grew in the space. The silence left behind. Leora made the swim team. Luca's studio booked its biggest campaign ever. I enrolled in night classes, something just for me. No one else's dreams attached. We started new rituals, Sunday pancake towers. Bedtime stories where the princess always saves herself. Friday walks along the marina counting sailboat lights. One evening, I changed my phone number for good. The first morning I woke up and there were 0 missed calls, 0 unread messages waiting to bruise me. I cried in the shower so Leora wouldn't hear. Some nights, still catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. But then I look across the dinner table. Luca, laughing at something Leora said. Sauce on her chin, eyes bright and unafraid. And I remember the shoe already fell. I just chose not to stand underneath it anymore. Here's the truth. I wish someone had carved into my bones years ago. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. Even when they share your blood, you are allowed to protect your peace. Even when they call it betrayal, you are allowed to build a life that feels gentle and safe and full of laughter that doesn't come with a bill attached. Family isn't a debt you spend your whole life repaying. It's the people who show up with kindness instead of invoices, who love you without keeping score, who hold your hand through storms. Instead of causing them, I found mine in a little prompt. I found mine in a little girl with starlight in her smile and a man who never once asked me to be smaller so someone else could feel taller. And if you're watching this, carrying your own invisible weights, your own silent dinners where you paid for everyone but yourself. Hear me. You don't have to stay where you are diminished. You're allowed to stand up. Pay for your own meal and walk into air that finally tastes like freedom. You are allowed to choose the life that lets you breathe all the way down to your soul. I'm Kai. This is the story of how I stopped being the family's endless resource and started being Leora's father, Luca's partner, and finally, myself. If something in these words stirred your own courage, say I'm still here in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Even just the weather outside your window tonight. I read every single one. And knowing you're out there choosing yourself too keeps me going. And if this story gave you even an ounce of strength, please subscribe. It helps these truths reach the ones still sitting at tables where they're told they don't belong. Thank you for walking this with me. Thank you for listening with your whole heart. Now, go build the gentle life you deserve. I'll be right here cheering you on, breathing easier because we both made it to the other side.